for the second time in a week, the meeting between the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress APC, Bola Tinubu, governors of the party and members of the party's National Working Committee, NWC, and the disputed Presidential Campaign Council, PCC, yesterday ended in a deadlock. The meeting, which again failed to agree on a particular date that the ruling party will flag off its campaign, however, saw the national chairman of the party, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, stay away from the deliberation that lasted hours, raising concerns about the state of the party. The meeting was a follow-up to last Wednesday's tripartite committee meeting aimed at harmonizing the party's presidential campaign council list. But the spokesperson of the PCC, Mr. Festus Keyamo, said the President Muhammadu Buhari's schedule being the chairman of the campaign council was delaying the flag-off of the campaign. At the same time, wife of the APC presidential candidate, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, yesterday called on women to mobilize for the victory of the party at next year's elections. Meanwhile, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has been speaking on why he was conspicuously absent from the flag-off of the PDP presidential campaign in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State earlier in the week. Makinde says he was busy campaigning to win votes in his home state as part of his re-election strategy. He was one of the 5 governors, including Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, who did not attend the event in an alleged protest over the continued stay of Iyorchia Ayu as the party's national chairman.
I've been busy at home in Oyo State, campaigning for everybody. So Uyo is not where I need to pull the votes together. It's in Oyo, so I stayed in Oyo.
A lot to talk about those 2 stories, Dr. Batu.
Well, I mean, Governor Seyi Makinde having to explain that the reason he was not in Uyo at the flag-off of the presidential campaign of the People's Democratic Party was because he was busy. Well, I mean, that's his explanation. Can we doubt him? He said, he was in Oyo campaigning because the part of his comment that is not included there was that the votes he needs to get a second term, those votes are in Oyo State. They are not in Akwa Ibom State. So in other words, for a governor that is seeking a second term in office, felt the need to go, to campaign. He will have his own schedule. But I think eyebrow is raised because, about 5 governors of the People's Democratic Party were conspicuously absent. And concerns have been raised about how this can affect the presidential campaign. But, I've also seen reports in the papers indicating that some of the governors that were not there, like Governor Ifeanyi Ungwanye and Governor Ikpeazu, they sent representatives. Their supporters were there, and their presence was conspicuous. Maybe they were not there in person, but their supporters, were there. So were there persons from Oyo State who are supporters of Governor Seyi Makinde, who also attended that, campaign inauguration? Maybe. However, what is important is in terms of public perception, the concern that the People's Democratic Party is not united going ahead. But if Senator Adolphus Wabara is to be believed, and other party leaders, efforts are being made ahead of the election. There's still a window of about 5 months to see how many of these issues can be addressed. Meanwhile, Governor Nyesom Wike, whose name is usually mentioned, he's already putting up his own structures for the next election in Rivers State. After all, yesterday he appointed, 2 days ago he appointed 14,000 special advisors and representatives in about 391 wards. And yesterday he appointed 28,000 special assistants, which means that, he's going to be heavily on the ground in Rivers State. Well, whether he will campaign for the party at the presidential level is another question that many people are raising. But that many of these governors, despite the fact that they have grievances, have pointed out that they remain party members and they are not going anywhere. That's that about the People's Democratic Party and Governor Makinde. If you look on the other side, in the neighbor's compound, the All Progressives Congress, where the story started from, yes, there was a meeting of the party yesterday at the Transcorp Hilton, which lasted for about 3-4 hours. And this will be the second meeting within a week over the issue, the unresolved matter of the Campaign Council Committee of the All Progressives Congress. Before now, the APC had announced a campaign council of about 432 persons. But there were, issues raised by certain stakeholders saying that certain persons were not included in that list. And hence, we were told that, the meeting yesterday was called to find a way of resolving the matter further. But some of the papers are reporting that it ended in a stalemate, where the party spokespersons are not talking about any stalemate. At least 3 of them spoke after the meeting to the press, namely Femi Fani-Kayode, Director of New Media, spokesperson of the Presidential Campaign Council of the APC, and Felix Moka, the spokesperson of the party. So you can see the 3 of them there on the screen. And they, if I can just summarize the things that they said majorly, Festus Keyamo was saying that, look, the meeting went very well, that the party is, together, and that presidential campaign is like moving a 50-ton vehicle. He likes to use that metaphor, and that they need to cross the T's and dot the I's before they come out. And he made a point also that they need to work with the president's schedule. The president is the chairman of the APC Presidential Campaign Council. He's also leader of the party. He's also at the same time president of Nigeria. So he says they have to work with his schedule. Both he and Femi Fani-Kayode, refer to allegations that, the party is colluding with some people to stop INEC from using the BVAS, the biometric verification system. And both of them dismissed that as absolute nonsense, that there is no such thing. Felix Moka, who is the party spokesperson, was asked why the chairman of the party was not there. And he said, well, that was not an issue. After all, the national deputy chairman of the party North and also the national deputy chairman South were at that meeting, and they represented, the party chairman. However, one major thing which came out of that was Festus Keyamo reporting that at that meeting, the candidate of the party, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his running mate, former Governor Shetima, presented the manifesto of the party, or rather a draft manifesto for other stakeholders in the party, many of whom were there to review. On this program, we had asked on many occasions that we are in fact expecting and waiting for the full manifesto of the All Progressives Congress. Now, naturally, the reporters wanted Festus Keyamo to give details, but he said no, he didn't want to present the manifesto on behalf of the candidate. And we hope that in due course, the All Progressives Congress will present that manifesto, make it available publicly for us to begin to, examine, interrogate. And we hope that that will not take too long in coming. And while they were at that meeting, there were also stories about the APC online. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu not showing up at, a roundtable on the economy organized by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. And people say, oh, he missed the conversation organized by the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he was also absent at the ICANN, roundtable on the Nigerian economy. But in any case, maybe like Seyi Makinde, he too will come forward and say, well, the reason for his absence, was it not obvious? After all, he was holding a major party meeting in Abuja. But in any case, that's just in terms of the public perception and what has transpired in the last 24 hours in those two regards.
Very good one, Dr. Abati. It has to be said, all is not well among political parties in Nigeria. And in the last 24 hours showed it. The APC problem has been on ground for quite a while. The meeting was to placate it, and you saw the loopholes in that meeting. The chairman not being there, there have been concerns raised about even the chairman himself, Adamu, and the fact that there's been a lot of back and forth in the political party. Some people feel marginalized. Hence the reason for calling even this campaign council meeting in the first place, because there were a lot of gray areas they needed to settle. And this is just from them coming out of that Muslim debacle, which they've been able to sort of rest now by saying the likes of Dogara and Babacha Lawal, are not members of the party. I think Tinubu said that. So they are struggling to find their acts and to grind their acts. They say, yes, the president has to be there, it's incumbent on the president's schedule, but there are some other problems on ground in the APC, as it's obvious there. And when the spokespersons came out to speak yesterday, they tried to placate things, but it's crystal clear. For a meeting like that, except the chairman were probably indisposed, which they didn't come see otherwise, he had to be there at a very critical meeting like that. And the papers that say that ended in a stalemate, to a large extent, they were on ground. They saw things for themselves. A lot of agreements have not been reached. And that's why these meetings are continuous. The PDP, the same thing. Governor Seyi Makinde, the best place he could have been was at the flag off of the presidential campaign. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure there was a major campaign in Oyo State on that same day of the flag off that he wasn't there. And the other governors like Governor Ogwai, it was obvious because of the IU matter had not been resolved. And that was a walkout. There's a difference between sending your representatives and you being there in a political season where politicians liked a lot of optics. I mean, the governors too that attended could have stayed out. But everybody had to be there so that they were supposed to show that sense of alliance. But it's just an indication that all is not well in the PDP. And this Wike issue still dragging on. They've started their campaign. In fact, the story emerged that they had to, cool down things in their campaign because of Wike, but the PDP debunked it and said, no, that's not the case. And I think they'll be having more states over the weekend. I think their next stop should be Kaduna over the weekend or something. They should make an appearance there and continue with their campaign. But the Wike question is still there. Because Wike and his 5 governors have not officially gotten on the back of the presidential candidate, but they've not left the party either. So it's a double whammy for them, and how they wriggle their way out of it is another problem. And like you did say, I don't see any reason why forums where you could talk to Nigeria, an important body like ICANN, presidential candidate of the APC, should not be there. The Chamber of Commerce, he wasn't there. And yes, we can make the legal argument that 2 of the candidates, the presidential candidate and the running mate, they are one and all of that. But we want to hear from the presidential candidate because there's somebody on top of the ballot. So the presidential candidate of the APC must start attending these events, these debates, and espousing his ideas, not people coming to speak. Nigerians have a right to know, as it is with other presidential candidates. And that's why you saw the episode with Showore there, asking where is he? The Labour Party too had their own. Then Yokuke came out yesterday to speak about the presidential campaign council. Some people in the party kicked against it. It took the chairman of the party, Abure, to come out to say, discountenance what was happening. But that shows that there's also a friction in the Labour Party. So what we've seen in the 24 hours is that, the Labour Party tried to settle theirs, and the APC tried to settle theirs, PDP tried to settle theirs. There are frictions across political parties. But what is most important is Nigerians let the issue lead the way. And I can't wait to see the manifesto of the Labour Party, the APC, and other political parties. Nigerians have a right to see them, to read through them, and interrogate based on the things they say they'll do. Moving on to the next story. Coalition for United Political Parties, CUP, has raised alarm over an alleged plot to remove the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakub. The coalition spokesperson, Ikenga Ugochinyere, says that they've also uncovered fresh plots to deactivate the bimodal voters accreditation system, BVAS, from being used on election day. The coalition also alleged that there were plots towards stopping the electronic transmission of election results at the polls. The CUP comprises the majority of opposition political parties, including the People's Democratic Party and the Labour Party.
This latest intelligence and shocking information involve the use of security agencies, the APC-controlled Senate, and the courts to cause a leadership crisis and change, a leadership crisis and change that will see to the removal of the Commission top leadership led by Professor Mahmood and the appointment of a pushover and compromised acting chairman who will ruin the credibility of the 2023 election by deactivating the BVAS machine from the INEC server. Stop the use of electronic transmission of results and also ensure that the Commission's resident electoral commissioners nominated by APC governors are quickly approved and deployed to states where they will be of assistance to the ruling party at the expense of credible, free and fair election.
So about a lot to talk about this morning.
Well, I don't know. The coalition of, United Political Parties, CUPP, keeps bringing up these issues. The other day, it was, the same leader of the CUPP, Kenga Ugochinyere, raising questions about the voters' register and attempts to manipulate that register. After INEC, gave the assurance that there was no such thing, that what INEC was doing in line with its schedule of activities was to clean up the voters' register and prevent double registration or multiple registration. The same CUPP leadership turned around and said, they had agreed with INEC that what INEC was doing was a necessary exercise. Okay, INEC has since announced what it has done with that voters' register and how it has managed to clean it up. About 2.7 million names guilty of a double or multiple registration have been removed to clean up the register. And the register will be up out there. They also promised us initially for public examination. Now, that seemingly having been resolved, the CUPP leadership is now out there saying that, they have intercepted intelligence to show that some governors are plotting to remove the INEC chairman and some commissioners in INEC. Well, this is going again, as is the case now, to generate, a lot of interest. And the APC, through Festus Keyamo, I tried yesterday to, react to that. When I quoted earlier on, both Festus Keyamo and also Femi Fani-Kayode, who dismissed that allegation, and the involvement of anybody within the APC in this regard, has been absolute nonsense. And I'm quoting them, the phrase that both of them employed. Well, two things. I think the first thing is to note that, look, if CUPP has intercepted any intelligence of any plans to stop the adoption of BVAS or stop the use of electronic transmission of results, well, beyond raising the alarm, they should make that intelligence available to the appropriate authorities. However, the adoption of electronic transmission, electronic verification, of the voters' register, even on election day, these are matters of the law. There are sections of the Electoral Act that make the procedure of elections very clear. Now, no individual can just come on his own and say that that will not happen again because it's right there in the law, except you go and change the law. Okay? And one of the major achievements that people talk about is that we now have in place, a legal framework, for elections that has tried to address many of the grievances raised previously by Nigerians with regard to the integrity of elections. And the use of technology and electronic transmission, are some of these major highlights which we have debated ad nauseam. Now, secondly, members of the Independent National Electoral Commission, they are not just appointees just like that directly of any particular individual. The Senate is involved, in giving assent to the nomination and the appointment of either the commissioners or even the INEC chairman himself. So anybody saying, the INEC chairman can just be removed unilaterally. We also still have to contend with the role of the Senate, in ratifying and in looking into appointments and removal of certain categories of principal officers of state And in any case, it wouldn't even be in the interest of anybody to try to unilaterally rewrite the law or try to do anything, to jeopardize the process. But I will not dismiss, the concern raised by, the coalition of united political parties. It may be a conspiracy theory. It may be that they have information, but that information must be made available to the relevant authorities beyond the court of public opinion. And everyone, whether it's the CUPP or it's any other particular stakeholder group, must refrain from, either scaremongering or going the extra mile just to cause tension within the public. But I imagine that the INEC will also respond to this. I've not seen any statement from them to tell us clearly whether there's anything at risk. But if government were to be advised, or anybody were to be advised, anything that is done to tamper with the process would jeopardize, would be a contradiction of promises that have been made, not just by government, but also personally by President Muhammadu Buhari, who has assured Nigerians that one of the major legacies he hopes to leave behind is the integrity of the elections. He has said this locally, he has said this internationally.
I mean, very, very great point you made, Dr. Abati, there. But the truth has to be said. The CU people is saying this. Ideally, Saturis being paribus, you should not be able just to go and pull out the INEC chief and pull out other people like that are stakeholders in the election process. You should let the law go and be applied the way it should be applied. But the sad thing in Nigeria is that Saturis is not always paribus. All things is not always been equal. And I refer you to 2019. We also, leading up to the election process, how all of a sudden we have Code of Conduct investigating the Chief Justice of the Federation. Elections were in February. Onoge was suspended in January. We all saw those events. And we've seen one too many events like that in this country. We can even dial back. How even after election dates, we've had to move election forward because of insecurity and things like that. If the CUPP has facts and evidence, they should provide it to the relevant quarters and also make noise about it. Yeah, we might say, okay, the court of public opinion, but sometimes it is good to put each other and ourselves constantly at alert in this country. Our elections in 2023 must count. And it must count because your vote must count. And that's why, apart from the CE people calling on, the relevant bodies for this, the people too should come out there to vote. Because like I was saying this morning, the most important voting machinery in the hands of a rigging politician is voter apathy. The most important voting machinery in the hands of any rigging politician is voter apathy. The most important voting machinery in the hands of any rigging politician is voter apathy. I had to say that 3 times for emphasis so it could stick in there. Also, it is same in this country that people have even complained about some moves made recently. People still complained about the head of ICT in Abuja and INEC that was transferred. People are still arguing about the new commissioners and the fact that you can remove, that streak of partisanship of them. It is in the same country that we had the, social media specialist to the president being put forward as an electoral commissioner before the Senate fought that and said that Madam must not be there because we know she's very partisan. And you can go and read her tweets online. We saw that in this country. So if CU people is raising this up, and when they raised the last concern, didn't INEC allude to it? Because truthfully, all sorts of pictures put in there. We had Mike Igini come here to talk about the fact that at some point in some election, faces from a photographer's shop was just passport photographs were taken and they put on the election register. And that's why people are questioning the election register. So we all need to be vigilant. Ideally, Saturis being paribus, we should go to sleep after the passage of the electoral laws and say, oh, President Buhari, kudos to you. And I will say it here again. kudos to President Buhari. And after the 23 election, I pray that President Buhari will be remembered for good for passing those electoral laws, because they really changed the game. But we can't also deny the fact that we have a judiciary that is as good as going there and we get injunctions here and there to stop the use of BVAS. These things are possible. We've had a judiciary too that we would like to call to also stand tall in this process and be counted. Because sometimes we found our judiciary wanting. Just like Mike Guinness said the last time he came here. So I want us to take these concerns very strongly that the COP has raised. And those in authority should investigate it. And once again, kudos to President Buhari for passing these electoral laws. But most importantly, the most important machinery in the hands of a rigging politician is your voter apathy. If you don't come out to vote, it makes it easier for them to rig. Justice Ariwola Olukayode has been formally sworn in as the Chief Justice of Nigeria. After the oath of office, he admonished politicians to allow the judiciary function optimally as the 2023 elections approach. State House correspondent Adiso Omoran reports.
I, Ariwola Olukayode, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that I will preserve, protect, and defend the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So help me God.
After 4 months in acting capacity, President Muhammadu Buhari at the council chambers of the presidential villa swears in Justice Ariwola Olukayode as the substantive Chief Justice of Nigeria. June 27 this year, following the resignation of Justice Tanko Muhammad on health grounds, Ariwola took over in acting capacity. His swearing-in was witnessed by other justices of the Supreme Court, the governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, and his Ondo State counterpart, Rotimi Akeredolu. In his first interaction with reporters, the CJN urges politicians to allow the judiciary function optimally while promising reforms at the apex court.
Politicians should allow the judiciary to function. You know, law is not static, and it is the law that the courts apply to the facts available. We shall continue to do justice if only Nigerians will allow us to perform and function without any pressure. And as I said on the 27th of June, when I was sworn in acting capacity, I shall not let down Nigerians. Because with the support of my brother justices, like I can see all of them are here with me, as they were when I was sworn in acting capacity. With their support, we shall not fail Nigerians.
An indigene of Isenyi, Oyo State, he was appointed a Justice of the Supreme Court on November 22, 2011 by President Goodluck Jonathan. Governor Makinde, who witnessed the event, expresses appreciation to the president.
One of our own is now the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and the good people of Oyo State were thankful to Mr. President for seeing the process through.
Justice Ariwola Olukayode was born on August 22, 1954. He was appointed a judge of the Oyo State High Court in 1992 and later a justice of the Court of Appeal in November 2005. Only on Tuesday, he received the second highest national honor, the Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger. Adesua Omoruan, Arise News.
All right, Dr. Bati, let's talk about this.
Okay, congratulations to His Lordship Justice Olukayode Ariwola. Is now the substantive, we think, Chief Justice of Nigeria. And this happens to have been quite an interesting week for him. This same week, he was honored, along with others, with the prestigious title of Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger. And then, of course, after that, he was sworn in as Chief Justice of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. His appointment having been confirmed on September 21 by the Senate. So at a personal level, congratulations to him. I mean, he was called to the bar in 1981. He started practice as an NYSC State Council in Oyo State. And from that time till now, spent some time in private practice. And from private practice, he was appointed to the bench in Oyo State. Rose all the way, to the justice, to become Justice of the Court of Appeal in 2005. And then, of course, in 2011, November 2011, he was appointed to the Supreme Court bench, following the resignation of Justice Tanko Mohammed, and being, according to tradition, the most senior member of the bench of the Supreme Court. He was, recommended by the National Judicial Council to the president. And then, of course, he came in that acting capacity. So, congratulations also to the people of Iseyin, people of Oyo State, who must justifiably be excited, as Governor Makinde echoed, saying that one of their own is now Chief Justice of Nigeria. And also, of course, the people who hail themselves as Great Ife. He is a product of the University of Ife, which later became Obafemi Awolowo University. I can imagine in the Faculty of Law in Ife, there will be a lot of jubilation. So a lot of, sentiment around this. But now, Justice Ariwola is going to preside over the Supreme Court, and the judiciary during election season. And it is very clear that he himself, realizes the importance of that responsibility by stressing the point that Nigerians should allow the judiciary to function and not obstruct the work of the judiciary, because what is paramount really is the rule of law. And in any case, during this period, there will be a lot of election petitions. There will be pre-election cases, cases arising from elections, and election cases being in a class of their own, will require a lot from the judiciary. So he understands that part of his mission. He, of course, having also sat on the Supreme Court during the process of the 2019 election petition cases. But there are other issues that, His Lordship will need to, think about. It is true that Justice Tanko Mohammed resigned on health grounds. But there was a lot of drama at the time when there was, a petition that was said to have been written by, justices of the Supreme Court about their welfare, about the management of the resources, about, who gets what opportunity, either in terms of, number of assistants or in terms of study. And that was a big issue at the time in June here, when a lot of people expressed concern about what looks like, a further erosion of standards within the Supreme Court, the apex court of the land. Now, clearly, we hope that, this will also be one of the things that, the new Chief Justice of the Federation will focus on to be able to provide that leadership, carrying his brother justices along and making sure that, untidiness that presage the exit of Justice Tanko Mohammed is adequately, addressed, and that also the state, provides support in that direction. Because if you have a Supreme Court where the justices don't even have air conditioning in their offices, they don't have access to basic instruments for facilitating their work, or they are disgruntled in one way or the other because they don't have assistants, they are not allowed to go for courses, then of course, basically, it is the integrity of the justice system that will be affected. And you need not just the Supreme Court, a judiciary that is above board, like Caesar's wife, as it is said, at all levels. We have a hierarchy of courts, and we also hope that, Justice Ariwola, as the leader of the bench, would, as justices before him have done, spell out, remind those judges at other levels who are very good at abusing ex parte injunctions and, allowing lawyers to come and use the court to do forum shopping, and to disobey rules in terms of procedure and jurisdiction and all of that, that he will be very firm in ensuring that the National Judicial Council, which he also leads in his capacity as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, just applies the rules, even if there are persons who are saying that there is need in the long run. I don't know whether he will be able to do it during his tenure, for reform, particularly of the National Judicial Council, so that you don't have the same person, leading the court and also at the same time leading the council. Well, he will be 68 on August 22 this year, so that means that he has within a very short time within which he can make impact. But of course, lawyers and other, judecs will of course look up not just to Justice Ariwoola himself, but also to all their lordships on the bench, for leadership, so that perhaps we can begin to have intimations of that, golden years of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, because you have many lawyers looking back and saying, oh, in the days of Obaseki, in the days of Kadiesho, in the days of Chukwudifu Okuta, in the days of Nnamani. I hope that the Supreme Court, will get back to that glory, and that the process may well begin under the leadership of Justice Ariwoola. Congratulations again, Your Lordship.
I mean, congratulations, well deserved. And it has to be said, he is coming in at a time where there are a lot of questions asked of the judiciary, especially as we go into this electoral process. The judiciary must come up strong. We must have judgments that people should look back on and say, makes, a lot of sense, it makes fair sense. But when we have judgments in this country consistently, and if I'm to go back, goodness me, I can count many at the top of my finger, that when you look back at those judgments, you wonder, who did this? What happened? Even the highest court in the land has been called to question as regards this. So we hope that the era of Justice Ariwoola will bring, that level of balance and truly those judicial reforms needed. Also, we hope that this era will usher in the dispensation of speedy delivery of judgments. There are too many people across board in our prisons, that the judiciary has just held in there because the system is at snail's speed, and it's very slow, and they don't get justice. And you know what they say about justice being delayed? Pretty much is akin to justice denied. So we want a speedy dispensation, and hopefully, probably if you can push for reforms as regards, digitizing the system of the judiciary. I think Lagos State has led the way in this, but we need some more digital reforms in terms of records, archivings. When I hear things like courtrooms were burnt as regards, when we had an NSAS and all the records are lost, I don't see why we can't have a digital cloud system, for instance, where, cases that date back to yesteryears can be properly archived in this country. I don't see why we're still doing manual, paper archiving, rather than having all of these things scanned and put on a cloud platform. So I'm also looking for digital reforms, even with case notes and things like that. A proper archiving system, Those are things we look forward for the judiciary. But most importantly today is to congratulate Justice Ariwoola and wish him a very good time, as he dispenses his duties. That's